A few weeks ago, we spoke to Professor Hugh White from the Australian National University about the role of America in the Pacific. He said the United States faced a choice. It could either cooperate or it could compete with China, a growing influence in this part of the world. Well, this week I had the opportunity to put that claim to a visiting US diplomat who specialises in the region. Susan Stevenson is the US Deputy Assistant Secretary for Public Diplomacy in the Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs. We talked about China, but I began by asking her about the current state of our relationship with America.
So under President Obama and then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, they made the strategic decision to focus on not only the Asia-Pacific region, but also New Zealand in particular, because despite our many cultural similarities, our shared history and heritage, we have had a little bit of a difficult time over the past 3 decades. And it was really because of this increased engagement, and I think in no small amount because our president is a Pacific Islander himself, having been raised in Hawaii, that they were able to overcome some of the obstacles we've had in the past with New Zealand and really engage at a level we had not seen in quite a long time.
And do you see New Zealand as being quite central to engaging in the Pacific?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, we've just come from a forum where we discussed the many diaspora communities from the Pacific Islands that are here in Auckland and in New Zealand, and how really you can engage with the populations starting right here in New Zealand.
On this program recently, we spoke to Professor Hugh White from the Australian National University, and he said America was facing a difficult decision right now, that they could either compete or they could cooperate with China. And he felt that America was trending towards competing. What do you make of that?
It's difficult for us to understand this narrative of the United States being in competition with China when really our two economies are inextricably linked right now. In terms of investment, in terms of our trade relations, we need to cooperate on issues from climate change as the two biggest greenhouse gas emitters in the world, the two largest economies in the world, even on issues like the DPRK, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and their nuclear aspirations, to Iran, to G20 issues and the global economy. I mean, it really is a partnership rather than a competition. Obviously, when you have two countries that are as large as they are, you might have the impression that it's a zero-sum game, but I think our senior officials have been at great pains at saying that it's not a zero-sum game, that we welcome Chinese involvement.
I'd like to touch a little bit on the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, because China's not a negotiating partner in that. If a deal is done, do you think China could view that partnership as something of a threat?
Well, China has, of late, talked about some interest in considering joining the TPP. You're right, they're not a negotiating partner right now, but they haven't ruled it out. I don't know that China should feel at all excluded, or in fact, if they did feel excluded, hopefully they would have renewed interest in joining. The idea there is not to have an exclusive trade agreement that would not allow others to join. In fact, in recognition of the very high level of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, particularly with focus on Southeast Asia, the United States is engaged in this expanded economic partnership in trying to get people to the level where they could consider joining TPP, and we could engage China in the same way.
On another issue here at the moment, there's been quite a bit of concern, if you like, about when it comes to what sort of intelligence and information America is gathering from New Zealand on the Five Eyes Agreement.
The Five Eyes Agreement is a very important and I will say an exclusive arrangement that we have with just a few set of countries, so the UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. We do have a close partnership, and we do share information that we might glean that would be of use to the others. In terms of intelligence gatherings, you've seen the pendulum swing back and forth in the United States. Post 9/11, the feeling, so back in 2001, the feeling was the United States was acquiring information but not sharing it across the different branches of government. And so we got to be more inclusive and to make sure that information that we had through the Department of Defense or Department of State or our internal agencies was in fact shared widely so that patterns could be picked up and greater conclusions could be drawn. Then we had Bradley Manning, who was a private in the US military, and because he had this expanded access, was able to download a lot of secret documents and leak them to the news media. And from that, then there was concern about how widely this intelligence was being shared, and this I'm talking internally in the United States government. In the midst of deciding whether this was a good thing or not to have this expanded access, then we had the most recent incursion with Edward Snowden. So I think the United States is looking very carefully about who has access to information to make sure that we are sharing to the point that it's constructive and it's useful, that we're not getting stovepiped the way we used to be, but also recognizing that not everybody has that need to know, and that maybe we want to make sure that the individuals who are being entrusted with information do have not only the clearances, but the positions that deem it necessary for them to have that information.
So what is the purpose then of the information that America is gathering?
Well, I mean, as you might imagine, the core purpose is for national security and for the national security of all the countries involved. And this could range from counterterrorism efforts to military efforts, just across the gamut. And that's why I want to stress that although we have recognized that sharing broadly has its risks, we don't want to get into the situation where the information is so compartmentalized that it's not doing us the good that it should.
Susan Stevenson, US Deputy Assistant Secretary for Public Diplomacy, East Asian and the Pacific Affairs Bureau.